Yeah.
Hi, Falon. I'm so excited. And you know what? It's funny because we probably already did a story of hope when we did our first podcast, but let's just have
Yeah,
just an official one. I'm so excited that we're having a conversation.
I know, I'm so excited too.
And I guess you're my third person that I'm talking to. And so there's no format. But if you want to maybe introduce yourself and share a little bit about your story with mental well-being and the principles and it sounds weird to say where you started, but where you're at now too, just because I love so much about your story. I don't want to give it away. And we started recording when you were sharing such a great insight. And so whatever I think sometimes what I've said to people is, what would you a few years ago or a year or two ago would have wanted to hear? And that's kind of sometimes I think the stories that are so great to tell. Like what would have you 2 years ago or a year ago? What would previous you want to hear? What story would have been helpful for you?
Oh, that it's gonna be okay, and that just like I was just saying previously to you, it's so funny to see my almost two-year-old, like, he's so sick right now, and then he gets sick, and then, like, not even a second later after he's done throwing up, he's running around, his mood is back up, he's changed, and it's like gets me thinking like, "Oh my god, we could do that." Like, it's so easy, like, it doesn't matter if he's 2 or if you're 20 or if you're 30, like, us as human beings can just snap right back in a second. And I was thinking that earlier, and I was like, "Maybe it's just I put too much thought into things," you're too caught up and we don't bounce back as quickly.
Yeah, yeah. Or does this feel true to you? It feels true to me. My thinking gets in the way of me bouncing back. Like if it wasn't for my thinking,
Yeah.
I think I'd bounce back.
I feel that way. If I didn't have so much going on, like, it's just like a mental images and, like, thoughts constantly, I would be, like, right back,
Yeah. Yeah.
snapping right back.
Yeah. Well, will you give people a little bit of background or maybe share whatever you want to about yourself and kind of what brought you into the three principles conversation?
Yeah, actually 3 years ago when I was struggling terribly, and then when I met you, I was still awfully struggling. I would have never thought, nothing. There would not be a doubt in my mind that I would feel better and, like, feel, like, okay with anxiety and stuff. Then when I met you and was introduced to the 3 principles, it was like, I didn't get it at first. And, like, I tell everybody else, my thoughts have never changed, or, like, I just got this strong feeling. It just this feeling, and then it's like a light bulb, like, "Oh." And, like, learning the 3 principles, being in the community, it's so great. I would never even picture that I would be here right now. I would never picture that I wouldn't be afraid of panic attacks or anxiety attacks. I wish I could I wish I could known this 3 years ago, that it was gonna be okay.
Yeah, yeah. What was what was your experience like 3 years ago? If you don't have to talk about it if you
Awful.
don't want to, but so what was anxiety like for you? Like how did it show up? Like what's different about your experience 3 years ago versus now?
Well, 3 years ago, it was just terrible to me. I've had, like, boatload I felt like I was swimming in anxiety consistently, constantly in fight or flight mode, for years of my life, actually. And then going through a couple more things right before I met you, intrusive thoughts. I was never diagnosed with OCD, but I definitely feel like I have the rumination part, and it was just awful. I remember always being afraid that it was never gonna go away. I was stuck with these thoughts and these feelings for the rest of my life. And then I meet you. Like, seeing your Instagram, all this stuff, I was, like, thinking my first thought was, like, "There's no way." But then meeting you and working with you and, like, learning the principles and getting these feelings, now it's like I can have anxiety, I can have an uncomfortable feeling, there's times I don't like it at all, but I know that it goes away, and that's, like, what I think has completely changed my life. I could be having a panic attack, but I know deeply that it goes away, so it doesn't affect me like it used to.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I love that because you got that tattoo, "We're never stuck." like it
Mhm.
resonated so much. When did you get that tattoo? Was that like a year ago or 9
I
months or
feel like it's gonna be a year. It's gonna be a year. It's gotta be, like, I think it was August.
yeah. Oh my
It's
god.
gonna be a year. And it's so true, though, and it's, like, not even I like to tell people too, my thoughts haven't changed. Nothing has changed, like, I still ruminate, I still get caught up. I just know it goes away, and it's, like, I find myself when I have anxiety now or, like, just, like, a off low mood that it just feels really good, like, in my heart because I know it goes away. It doesn't matter if it's 20 minutes or 10 minutes or an hour. And I like to now look at myself as, like, I, like, think I have 2, like, states of mind. I'm in an insecure state of mind or a secure state of mind. So when I'm in that stuck in that insecure state of mind, I'm low, I still have hope because I know that I'm gonna bounce right back.
I love that. Well, understanding state of mind is just so transformative. Because then if we know, well, I'm in this insecure state of mind, I don't have to take my thinking so seriously. Even if we have a
Yes.
bunch of thoughts like, "Oh, well, this is the time, you might be stuck now," it's like it's just I love it for you that sounds like your anchor is knowing you're not stuck. Your anchor is knowing that you're always gonna bounce back, like so then if we know we're not gonna be stuck, it's like, "Well, I can tolerate this."
Yeah. I thought of you earlier actually because I was watching a TikTok and this woman had, like she was fine her whole life, but then she had a fever for 5 days, like 5 to 10 days, and then she ended up, like, I forgot what disease it was, but I was like, "How cool that her body told her that." And then I thought of you, I was like, "'Cause that's something that it reminded me of you saying, like, how amazing is the human body and the brain that it can alert you,
I
you
know,
know?
I know. I know, and it's really interesting when we don't, because that there, it's like you fell into gratitude or like, "Oh my god," like, just being, just being in awe, like, of something. One time I was in a low mood many months ago, and I had to get my blood drawn, and even though I had a bunch of unhelpful thoughts, as you were saying, it's like our peace of mind isn't and well-being isn't dependent if we never have any anxious or low mood thoughts. It's more the thoughts about the thoughts. So I had all these low mood thoughts, but I knew my mood was going to change. I didn't know when, but so I was getting my blood drawn, and then I thought, who invented this technology? Getting your blood drawn and then looking at the blood under, like, however they look at it, under a microscope, like you find information in your blood, and somebody said, "Here, let me put a needle here in your vein." Like, and I said it to the guy, the nurse. I'm like, what amazing that, and he was like, I said, who thought of this? Who thought of all parts of this? And he's like, I've never thought of it like that. But I didn't
Right.
force myself, but I fell into awe and gratitude, and sometimes it's like we can just be um it's really I love that you brought that up because that's such a good feeling state rather than one of judgment or anxiety or like, I hate the human body. Like, why do I have to fever for 5 days or what? Also, there's no judgment, but like how good it feels to be in
Yeah.
gratitude or to be in awe and amazement.
I've thought of that too, like, that feeling of love, just that feeling to live in that feeling of love, and I'm not there all the time. I fall out of grace consistently or continuously, but when I have that feeling of love for anybody, like even a stranger, it's like a grateful feeling because it's just I feel very much secure now, and that's why I forgot who I think it was Judith Sedgman that said that you have an insecure mind or a secure state of mind. And you could tell the difference when you really, like, are your mind's quiet and you just are noticing it.
Well, because what's really cool, there's so many cool things about your story. But that you are in the three principles global community, like you're becoming a three principles practitioner,
Yeah.
and an anxiety coach, or what would you call yourself besides all the
I am an anxiety coach, yes, I'm working my way to that, but I'm also getting into an addictions counselor,
oh
an
my god,
addictions coach.
that's
Yeah, and I have no idea what brought me to that. I just feel that was like an insight, like, even the people I don't look at I'm learning you don't look at them as addicts, they're human. We're all human beings. and we're all sitting in the middle of mental health, and I just feel like there's people get low and they get caught up. I don't know, I feel like I can help somebody, you know?
I remember when you said that like 6 months ago, you started to ask about
Yeah.
addiction, and, I'm so excited. Well, Erin's gonna be such a good teacher, and Judy and Christine, and wherever you go also after that, and so we're saying these names, but, Fallon is, so you might be listening, and you might be the first time hearing from me, or first time hearing from Fallon, or the first time hearing about the 3 principles, but what's so wonderful is Fallon and I connected maybe a year ago, a little bit more, but maybe like in
Yeah,
February, maybe almost a year ago. Is it okay if I share a little bit about how we know each
yeah,
other? And so
mhm,
we worked together one on one. And then Fallon joined a lot of groups I had. But then you just started to have so many insights that changed your life. And so some people have insights, but you were like, I've always wanted to be a therapist, but I didn't know if I could be a therapist because sometimes it seemed like your therapist had said, you couldn't,
you
and I was
can't.
like,
Yeah,
"You could be a therapist," and you're like, "Yes," and then I was also like, "You can also be a coach," and so that really sparked your interest not as just a human being, but also as how do you share this? And then I've always was so impressed because also you have 5 kids, and you would
yeah,
show up to every group, almost every single group that I've ran, I think in the past year. You were there and you were listening and you were having insights um I like lost my train of thought, but then I think it's just been really, really cool to see not only the insights that you've had, but how you've gone on to share and how you're going to. And then yeah, it sparked I forgot about your the addiction. That's so cool. That's
yeah. I just thought of too how you said that, my old therapist, she really used to tell me that I could not be a therapist because of my own mental health problems, and it's like, I used to be so down about that, and it would make me so anxious, like, how dare somebody? But now I look at it with gratitude, like, I'm a coach, and I'm gonna validate people, reassure people, because that's just I think that's fine. That's, like, the one thing I loved about working with you is it was just so real, and you allowed people to know about you and what you've experienced, and it was so validating, and it just was the best.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And now do you think it feels like a strength that you had? Because also you're in the middle of mental well-being. Like it's like we have these misunderstandings about ourselves and our experience and our thoughts. And so to me, I think it's really more powerful when we've actually also it's very powerful. No one has to have an experience with anything, but um I like lost my train of thought, but there's two parts. I think one, sometimes people really relate if they can understand, but also whether you're working with addiction and you haven't, we've all been human beings who have unhelpful thoughts and fall into unhelpful habits,
Mhm.
whether it's just a habit of thinking. But also I'm wondering for you, I think, I know when you would first sometimes join this group there were things that were like hard for you to hear, but then you also started to be more comfortable hearing things, listening to things, and also that is, to me, I'm imagining very hopeful about being a coach, because sometimes people are like, how could you, is it really tough? And in the beginning sometimes there's an adjustment, like, but then you to me, I just hear people's well-being and you just listen, and it's not like triggering or scary because we're having conversations
No.
about well-being. To me, the 3
Mhm.
principles, it's so hopeful, it's so positive.
I used to be worried. I remember telling you that too, like, what if I can't hear what somebody has? But I'm here. I can listen to like, I can read stuff now too. There are certain things that I still can't, and you know what? I let that slide. I don't care. I don't wanna read about certain things that are triggering or just put me in a low mood, so I just don't do it. You know what? The thing that helped me is, like, what you said is don't take it too seriously. Don't put pressure on it. I don't have to read an article. I don't have to listen to something. I don't have to be involved if it's gonna make me feel any sort of low moods or out of, like, my feeling of love is how I look at it now. I
Yeah,
love that gratitude, that grateful feeling for just life.
yeah, me too. And also, if we use our feeling as guidance, that feeling of gratitude feels so good, and then
It
sometimes the
does.
feeling of anxiety or hopelessness, it just doesn't feel good. It's nothing wrong. But if we're like, oh, well, I wouldn't. There's nothing's helpful there. Nothing's truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just I've always never thought I'd be here. I was literally drowning. I like when people say they were drowning in debt, well, I was drowning in mental health is how I felt. I
Yeah.
just feel like I took it too seriously all the time. The thoughts, the this is bipolar, this could be this, and I'm not judging anybody, but like, or what if I had this, or what if it doesn't go away, or what if I live like this forever, or I'm in a mental institution. All of that is just vanished. Like it's not completely gone. I still get them, but I don't put pressure on it. I don't get scared about it. There are
Yeah.
very little times now where I will get scared.
Will you talk to me? Because I've had a lot of people recently have been scared by the very idea that they could have bipolar disorder. And I know that that's a thought that I had. And so what I see as common is either they've read about it, or maybe they've read that that could be a side effect of a medication. Or sometimes what happens is we're in a low mood, and a low mood can be a few days of just like lower energy, and then we get excited. Or I'm talking about these people, and then they'll have this thought, maybe you're bipolar. And just the
Yeah.
idea of bipolar, and because that popped into their head, it can be completely terrifying. And I'm curious what seems like what insights you've had about that, um, about bipolar or any other something that seems like a mental health condition that's not anxiety.
I used to think that one like continuously because I'd feel so low where I was tired, then I was happy, and then I was mad, and then I'm like, oh my God, I'm bipolar. Like that's what this is. But it's like, no, because we're human and we can be happy, mad, sad, upset, depressed, have anxiety. I feel like all these emotions that I was always like afraid of or like hyper aware of, I just like allow myself to it's every human being. We all feel this way.
Yeah.
Plus I know that if you have bipolar, it can be fixed. I don't believe in diagnoses really anymore.
I know. I love that you're having that there's the 2 parts, because I feel the same way. It's like, sure, we can have this whole conversation, but also that the conversation of innate health and kind of the diagnosis trap conversation. But
Right?
also because I think on the one hand, we recognize, okay, I guess for clarity, sometimes we're human beings having this normal experience, and our brain's trying to like share its opinion, where it just thinks we should just be neutral, where no, we can be happy, we can be sad. But even if somebody was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, that doesn't mean that they can't return to a place of well-being and not experience
No.
such drastic highs and lows. But maybe kind of putting aside any actual diagnosis, like when someone is just in a state of anxiety, and because you said something that was so clicked for me. You were said hyper aware, and I think that's what people, they're
Yeah.
so zoomed in on, like they're so aware of their brain's chatter about their experience. You were low, now you're high, now you're angry, now you're not, now you're like, talk to me if what that means about when you were so hyper aware.
I would just always anything that was happening in my body, I felt like I knew. Like, I actually felt like I brought on some of my thoughts and my anger and my but I did actually bring on I just thought of that because I can't control my thoughts, but I can control if I think them or not. So, like, I brought on all this. I brought on, like, everything. I would just continuously think, "It's there, it's there." And it just didn't help me to be continuously hyper focused on that because the more I did that, the more I would feel it.
Yes, yeah.
That happened to me today with the hiccups. I had the hiccups. I was like, "These are never gonna go away. I'm gonna have the hiccups for the rest of my life. It could be an underlying disease." And then, like, 10 minutes later, they went away because I stopped focusing on them.
Uh, but you know what? I love that you say that, because when we can get onto ourselves and we can think, oh, I have that thought. Oh, this is it. This is now it's never going to go away. Because you know what? I probably have that thought, like it's still somewhere in the background. If I have a low mood that sticks out, it's like, this is the time you're going to fall into a depression. You're never going to be able to work. Like it's, it's predictable. My peace of mind isn't dependent if I never have an unhelpful thought. It's like I just did a little video on it, that was inspired by both of our mentors, Aaron Turner where it's like the way to stay in your well-being is to get good at knowing which thoughts to give attention to. So you can have thoughts, whether
Yes.
it's hiccups, these are the hiccups that are never going to go away, or I wonder if you have bipolar disorder. It's like we get, we don't have to pay attention. We don't have to take those thoughts so seriously. We can trust that we don't have to be vigilant about it. And I love that you brought up like being hyper aware and being vigilant because we can think that sounds like a good idea. Why I should take my physical
Yeah.
health seriously, I should take my mental health seriously, and that means I'm going to be hyper aware. But then just as you said, then we're hyper aware, we put ourselves in fight or flight and we actually have more physical symptoms or more mental symptoms. Um but it seems like, well, but isn't this important? How do I take care of myself if I'm not hyper aware? And now, you know, does it look like to you, here you are like 3 years later, does it look how do you take care of yourself if you're not being hyper aware? What seems important to you about your mental and your physical well-being?
I just haven't been taking things too seriously, and I love my self-care routines. I read now. I've never read. I did not used to read. I actually just reread, what was I can't even think of the name of the book. See, that's what makes me know about thoughts, how quickly they can just come and go. Sydney Banks' book. Why am I
Which one?
tongue-tied?
Miss Second Chance, The Quest of the Pearl?
Missing Link.
Missing Link.
I listened to it again, and it was so beautiful, and reading it although I thought he had to have been every single one of them.
He had to what?
So that
What'd you
Missing
say?
Link, he had to have been Jonathan, he had to have been Mama Lilu, all of it.
Oh,
He
yes.
was every single one of those characters, was he? Please correct me.
Oh my god, no, you're so true, and that's Second Chance. Yes, yeah.
Second
Yes,
Chance, yes, not Missing Link.
you're exactly right, because there was I'm sure so, okay, also caveat, everybody should read Second Chance. We talked about it in, the Peace from Within community, which Val and I are both in. So if you read it, you can also go and watch our book club discussion, but I'm sure we'll come in maybe you and I can run our next Second Chance book club meeting, but in there, it's more of a novel, sort of sharing the principles in a story way. And so Sid Banks is the founder of the principles. And you're exactly right that he's every character because Richard, now I'm like confusing the names. Jonathan is like the wise one, but then Richard,
I thought he was Sid Banks at first,
yeah,
but
yeah, but
then
I'm
towards
sure
the end
then yeah, and then you see Mama Leela. Um, but you know what? Isn't aren't all of us Sid and all of us Richard and all of us Jonathan at some point of our story, and what I love, I think Richard is the one who goes to Hawaii and has all those questions. Why
Yeah,
why I had us read it in the Peace from Within community as our first book is so many of my clients are like, I'm like Richard, where we're trying to get it and trying to figure it out and ask all these questions. But I'm sure like Sid asked questions, or maybe before he had his enlightened experience.
mhm. I
Yeah.
thought that was such a beautiful book. I don't wanna ruin the ending if somebody hasn't read it and then read it, but I was like, "Oh my god."
No.
It was great.
Did you say you listened to it?
Yeah, I listened to it on Audible.
I just did too. I sorry, I'm like, who is texting me? I I listened to it for the first time. I've read it like 3 times and I loved it so much. So I think I
Mhm.
listened to it when I cleaned my whole fridge, and it was such an amazing experience. It was like honestly probably some of the best few hours of my life. Like I felt it was in
Right?
such a good feeling. So I really
I
recommend.
say, like, read books, but I meant listen.
Listening is still reading. Listening is reading 100%. I wish I now we're gonna read The Quest of the Pearl, and I wish there was I don't can't find the audiobook. But I'm like, I
No,
only
there
wanna listen to
isn't.
Sid's books. I only wanna listen to books, especially if it's like a 3 principles book, I do much better to listen. I think I get out of my head.
That one I sent you, I
Oh,
feel
Chris
like that should be absolutely amazing. So many insights. It just I feel like if anybody has, like, relationship problems or just in general to listen to that book, you're gonna feel a huge amount of, like, love for just everything, and I was, like, in that book, taken back too, like, "Oh my god, I've done this. I do this. Oh my god."
Will you let's share the name of the book, and then would you share any insights you had about it? Because it's by Christine Heath and Lori like, I'll pull it up.
Yeah, I'm trying to Lori Carpanos. Is that
Or
her how you say it?
yeah, I'm bad with pronunciation.
The Secret of Love.
Okay. Okay.
It was so
Yeah, tell
good.
me
The insights I had were like, because I've worked with you. Me and my husband, I wanna strangle him sometimes, but, like, I always put the blame my biggest insight was I put blame on him for everything, but none of it's his fault and that's where I learned the insecure thinking and the secure thinking. I live in an insecure state of mind often. So, but my thoughts about him were my thoughts, and that was, like, really the first like, "Oh my god." So I'm sitting here thinking he's doing this or this has happened when he's not, and he didn't even do anything wrong because it was my thinking. Like, it's just, like, it was mind blowing to see that or, like, if you're in a low state of mind and somebody's annoying you, but they're not doing anything wrong, well, you just annoyed yourself because you're thinking it. Like, those are some of the things I took out of it, and it was it talks about too, like, with children, like, just because they're young doesn't mean they don't get, like, an insecure state of mind. It, like, helped me understand the human brain so much, and, like, when I look at my kids now too, I still get frustrated with them, but I know that, like, certain behavior puts me in a low, and then I'm having certain thinking that I'm creating. So I kinda, like, just let myself, let my mind settle. Like, that book was so good to, eye open just human lives. Like, it makes you feel, like, not alone too. I told her that was a great book, and she said, "Well, if it was, it'd be bestseller, and it isn't." But it really is so good. It helped me with, like, parenting and, like, with my husband. It helped me it talks about addictions too in that book as well, um, which is pretty cool because I didn't know you could be addicted to anything. Shopping, social media, cigarettes, alcohol, like, it's not even just a drug, you could be addicted
Yeah.
to other things.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Oh,
that book was good.
I love that. What are yeah, so you love Second Chance.
Relationship Handbook's still one of my favorites.
Oh, good. Yeah, The Relationship Handbook by George Pransky. And I loved that you had so many insights about that one.
Yeah,
Me too. It's one of I haven't read Christine's book, but I want to. I always have it on my list, but now I'm going to listen to the audiobook. And I've listened to the relation
that's on Audible.
I just saw it. I I love the relationship handbook. And and I think we're having this conversation, so if you're hearing it, the relationship handbook, and it also sounds like The Secret of Love. They're not just about relationships. We have insights about anxiety, about mental health, about, parenting. Like, at least I know from George's book, The Relationship Handbook. Yeah, it's called the relationship handbook, but it's also just the relationship with ourselves. Like in the relationship handbook, there's so many great things on moods, on like so much. Because what I love about the principles too is it's about one thing, but it's about everything. Because some
Yeah,
people say, what videos are gonna be good for OCD? All of them. Every single thing, because it's like, yeah, well, the same thing applies. Obviously, we can have a little bit, but like the same simple truths for relationships, for addiction, for OCD, for anxiety. It's this simplicity that can transform, that touches every area, and it's simple truth.
mhm.
It's not, well, this isn't true for this.
I love it too, and it's true for everybody. To see in Sid's book too, to see, like, Jonathan as, like, a normal wise guy, but he does say that he's, like, been in similar situations. That's where I knew, like, "Okay, I know what's going on here," but
Yeah.
it's true for everybody. Like, we all can have mental health. We all can be addicted to something. We all I like to think now, like, I'll hear your voice in my head sometimes. Don't put judgment on it and don't take it too seriously. Because I feel like I look at it now as like I can't control my thoughts, but I can control which ones I'm thinking. And I can, I know it's going to be okay so deeply. And that's what helps. It doesn't matter if I feel afraid of something or if I'm thinking for 10 minutes that somebody could come in my house or something scary or if I spook myself. I just know I'm going to be okay afterwards.
I remember something that you were more scared of a year ago. Is it okay if I say it? Because I always
Mhm.
about confidentiality and everything like that. But if not, you can do like take this part out.
Oh, yeah.
I remember when we first started talking, you were so afraid of like the possibility of like a gun, even, or like, and sometimes that was something of like picturing a gun or even like just the idea of it, or like, but just like, um, what's your experience like with just the idea of, and I'm not like not saying it exactly correctly, but I know that sometimes there were certain times where that was even just a sticky image or a sticky idea. Um, have a
I
different,
still get those, actually, but I don't stay with it because I mean, yes, it will spook me sometimes, but then I just go on to something else. I tell my like, I have enough in my life to be present, and I don't wanna think that thought. I don't wanna think scary things at all. There are times where I do. It's so weird because it does scare me, but it doesn't stick with me. I don't ruminate on it anymore, which is
yeah,
very I thought that that was gonna be I would ruminate on that thought for the rest of my life, but
yeah,
I don't know. I feel like too like, that's funny you said that because with Christmas, we had new neighbors, and my husband was like, "I think that guy's, like, concealed the carry over there." And, like, so many times I'm like, "Oh my god, my kids play outside. What if something happens? Does he have kids? What if the gun goes off?" Like, I had all of those thoughts, but they were just there. It wasn't like I did spook myself with a couple of them, but then I told myself, like, "Yeah, spook myself with another thought as well too," you know?
yeah, yeah. I love that because it's such an honest discussion, because that's why I wish that people could like see in my head. And that's why I think I try to share so honestly, because it's not like I'm like some Buddha up in Thailand, like being like, I just have pleasant thoughts. Like I have all types of thoughts. And most of the time I feel pretty good. And sometimes I'm not even aware, but sometimes I have just a flood of unhelpful, anxious thoughts. But it's like, I don't, what's so cool is like, oh yeah, I had them and I don't know what I did. I didn't do anything. Like we're not talking of here's the technique. Just having these realizations, just having these understandings. It's like you can have a bunch of thoughts and then off they go, because that's the nature of thought is when we understand it, it just comes. And it's like
Comes and goes.
we get to decide which thoughts we want to pay attention to. And sometimes, yeah, sometimes I do pay attention to some thoughts and then I start to feel not good. And I'm like, oh, and I kind of like let him go again. Um,
It's like you're controlling like, sometimes I feel like I'm in control of that love and feeling, and,
say more about that. That's so cool. What does that mean? I'm in control of that loving feeling.
like, how do I explain that? I'm just, like, in control if I wanna feel that, is
Mm.
how I know there's so many things that I could bring on the worst case scenario possible thoughts that could ever happen, or what if thoughts, but it takes away that good, peaceful, like, feeling that I have, so when I start to get caught up in it, I'm like, "Don't you do this to yourself." Like, I notice, like you say, I catch on to myself, like, "I'm gonna allow this to stay here, and it's gonna go because I don't you can really see if you put attention to it, it's gonna stay, the
Yeah.
more your attention it.
Well, I
But
just,
I do wanna point out that it's not an easy pattern to, like, get at. It wasn't easy to just
mm,
blatantly just stop it. "Okay, you're gonna stop these thoughts, and you're not gonna be scared." It took a bit, and, like, I just always remembered you saying, "Don't put pressure on it. It's fine. It's okay. It's okay for them to be there."
I love that you said that because it's not about perfection. It's not like, oh my God, okay, now I've had this realization and I'm never going to have an unhelpful thought, or I'm always going to let my thoughts instantly flow and I'm going to be present all the time. It's not about that. It's about enjoying the journey and not taking ourselves and our healing journey and our journey of life too seriously. But I wrote down something when I was watching something recently with Aaron. Um, and he said, you live in the thoughts that you listen to. And if you don't listen to them, you don't live in them. And then you kind of can be like, I'm anxious because I'm listening to it, I'm living in it. But I know how to calm down. I just have to stop listening. I feel good. And do I want to feel better? Yeah, I'm going to keep going. And that's what I felt like um you just said. Like I felt like you were really embodying that. That is not the thoughts, but it's the ones that we're listening to. And sometimes we can listen to them and then we get to wake up. Like I had a bunch of negative thoughts. It was more about how I looked and I don't know what. And also about like certain health things. And I was listening to them because they felt true. And it was like, but I made me feel bad. And I was like, I can really remember sometimes where I am, where I have a realization. And I was like in the closet that's right over there. And I was like, these thoughts aren't necessarily true, but like they weren't anxious. They were just negative thoughts about myself. And I was like, "Mm, I can let these go. But I wasn't letting them go because they felt true. But it was like, oh, I don't know. It's not making sense, but it was like it suddenly occurred to me, like, I don't have to listen to these thoughts. I wasn't feeling good because I was listening, but because they weren't about anxiety or about sorry, I don't know, they didn't have anything to do with mental health. They were sneaky and there they were. I was listening to them. Um,
I feel like I get to that point sometimes still, like, I will have so many thoughts that I don't wanna be involved with, but they're still there, and then I get, like, caught up a little bit, and then I have insights. Is that I have insights when I'm low.
yeah.
Like, I had one the other day, like, I thought I looked so good, and I was sitting there, and it may sound corny, but I was, like, listening to music, waiting for my kids to get off the bus. I looked in the mirror, I was like, "Wow, I look so good," and I felt this really good feeling, and I'm like, "Nobody told me I look good today but myself." Like, I create my feelings and the way I love myself, like, and my happiness. I don't get it from somebody else. Like, my husband did tell me I looked good that day, but, like, he didn't give me that feeling. I gave myself that feeling. It was, like, the best.
That's amazing. That's such a you know, what you said is, do you know that curriculum, My Guide Inside? Um,
I think so.
okay, because you know, it's you they those are 2 of the foundational lessons that you just said. So that's really cool. I just thought of it because
I lived years thinking that I was not pretty unless somebody, like, came home and told me I was pretty. So that was, like,
that's
that was the best day for me. I wrote it down.
oh my god, but you should write it down because that's what I was thinking, like, those are I was just looking at it because it's like, My Guide Inside. That is so huge that you saw that. The good feelings come from me, and happiness is inside of me. You know, I just thought it was so cool because it's like it's those foundational lessons where it's like, nobody you know, but also, like, you had said something to me or you were saying something in the conversation earlier, it's like, our good feelings are always there. Our well-being is
Mhm.
always there, you know, and then when we know that, it's like, you know, Dickon Bettinger was just in my community and he used all these nature analogies, and it was really cool. He said, and I wrote it down, I just loved it. Maybe I lost it, but I don't know where I wrote it down, but like that, you know, in terms of the nature, that's like the clouds aren't a problem because we know the sun's behind it. And then we know that the blue
Yeah.
sky is our nature, where it's like it's not a problem if we have unhelpful thoughts, um, but we know about our nature. And I that was kind of a tangent, but I just love that you had that insight that happiness is inside me and good thoughts come from me. And to me, they're always waiting there. And when I know that, then if I have an anxious thought or an anxious feeling, it's like, well, that's fine. Just I know my what my nature is. I know my true self. I know my true nature. I know it's well-being and I'm okay if there's some clouds and some intrusive thoughts or some anxiety. It's like I have that solid grounding and I feel like you have such solid grounding, you know?
I just thought of, like, thunder, and lightning, like, people get scared of those storms I used to, but they go away.
Yeah.
Like, we're not thunder and lightning all the time. It's not snowing all the time. It's not raining all the time.
Yeah.
So I love that. The sun always comes back, like, right behind the cloud.
Dickens said that. He said it in such a good way. I should find where I wrote it down. What day would it have been? Oh, the Dickens said, "There's nothing wrong with clouds if you know the sun is there and the blue sky is your nature."
I love that. So it's like the anxiety and all the, diagnosis is like the cloud, but underneath all that is, like, who we truly are, like, always and meant to be.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and a diagnosis also just describes where somebody is, never who they are. So if just
Yes.
looked out and you're like, it's a cloudy day, you wouldn't be like, it's a cloudy day forever. And I know that you love Judy Sedgman, and Hannah Studley told me that about Judy's definition of a diagnosis, which I thought was so good. According to Hannah, Judy said that a diagnosis is just like, say you're really sick, you're home from work, you're so sick. Because you're home from work, you miss a promotion. Your nemesis gets a promotion. You're sick, you've got a pimple on the end of your nose, and now you need to go out. You got to get more Kleenex. So you go to the drugstore, and then someone takes your photo, and they're like, this is your profile picture forever. And you'd be like, no, this is just my worst day. Like, this is a bad day. That's not how I look like. They're like, no, this is you, this is your profile picture, this is how you look forever. And so sometimes people get a diagnosis on like their lowest moment, where that's just a snapshot of where somebody was on that day. And I'm not denying that we don't have to go on a tangent of diagnoses, but a diagnosis can be helpful for describing where somebody is, but it doesn't speak to who they are. It doesn't speak to their nature, of their blue sky, of their health. Just as if somebody has a really bad flu, it's not like now you have the flu forever. It's like, no, you've got the flu,
Yeah.
got a mental virus, like, give you support. So I'm all for support, wherever somebody is. But I think what I love so much about the conversation that we both get to be in is we talk about innate health and people's true nature and what's true for all human beings. And it's just so hopeful.
Yeah. I love that. That made me think of when I had the heart palpitations. I don't have those anymore. It's just gone.
Fun.
So nothing really does stick.
Wow. Yeah. What are some things, parting words that you might have for people? What would you, also, it can be, well, yeah, what do you wish people knew? Or what do you know?
I just want like, my parting words would just be just my favorite saying is, "You're never stuck," and that I just when I do my coaching, like, I just love to validate people, and I always wanted to tell people too, like, if you need validation or reassurance, that's fine. Don't put judgment on that either. Don't beat yourself up for being human. This is just everything that happens is, like, how we are and who we are supposed to be. And that's, like, my favorite thing to think of, like, I'm having anxiety right now, that's fine. I'm having intrusive thoughts right now, that's okay, because in 20 minutes when I'm outside playing with my baby or something, I'm not gonna have any of it, so
I love
don't
that.
get too caught up.
I love that so much. We're never stuck. And I also love that you brought up reassurance, because sometimes, reassurance is just the label we give it when, hey, can't we want a little conversation and a little comfort? And especially when
Mm,
we're deepening our understanding, regaining our trust, having this understanding, as you said, like, you don't even look for reassurance now. But sometimes people make it such a big deal. Someone sent me a DM because I had shared something, and they said, I think that person was looking for reassurance. I don't think what you said was helpful. And I'm like, I don't buy. I was like, I don't take the reassurance thing too seriously, because we're just looking for comfort, for conversation. And as people's understanding deepens and they start to feel more trust in themselves, they naturally, because reassurance, we're feeling insecure. But as we understand it,
yeah.
I love that you started to understand your states of mind. I just absolutely love that. And you said that you're doing some coaching. Are you taking on clients?
I am taking on clients, and I'm actually still I'm not charging yet.
Okay.
I'm, like, back and forth, and I'm still doing free coaching and learning, and I have one client too, and I just love learning with my clients too. Just like you can learn from anybody. Like there's times and I remember Christine Heath told me that as well. Like you're gonna learn from every single person that you're around once you can see like states of mind and everything.
Yeah. Well, if people were wanting to be your client, how would they get in touch with you?
I do my Instagram and I do a lot on TikTok now too, which I never thought I would be doing.
So, well, and I can put it in the notes here, but tell people where they can find you on TikTok and on Instagram.
Oh, yes. So we got my Instagram is Fallon Wachowski, and that's just it. And then we have Fallon 617 for the TikTok. I don't ever know how to do the links.
Oh.
TikTok link is, no, Instagram link is so weird,
Oh, really?
but
I can figure it out for you, I think.
yeah, I have 2. The one
Okay.
is, like, my private, but I just got verified too on Instagram too, so now people know I'm real, it's me, so I was so excited
Yes.
about that.
Oh my gosh. Well, congratulations. And I think that's
Thank
so
you.
exciting. So, yes, I think if it wasn't clear that Fallon is also a three principles practitioner, like an apprentice in the three principles global community, and also does groups with Judy Sedgman and Christine Heath. And so, just kind of also anybody can be a coach, but sometimes the coaching business can be like the Wild West. And so, I wanted to say that that you
Yes.
are getting supervision because I think that's really important as somebody starting out. And that's why I think when Fallon's saying she's not charging, it's such a wonderful space to be there and give it as a gift so we can get confident in our coaching skills. But I do want to say just that you are getting supervision and support and guidance. And I know, Fallon, I've always been blown away by your insights and your understanding. And like I was like, you got it. You've been having insights. So I think anybody that would want to have a coaching conversation with you would be so lucky because you've not only had
Oh,
your personal experience but you're also having professional experience. And I
yes.
know that in October 2024 Fallon's going to do Aaron Turner's um like a the year long foundational kind of practitioner,
Yeah.
which is so amazing. And so anybody that kind of gets in a coaching conversation with you is going to be so lucky because I'm just so excited
Mm.
about the insights that you've had for yourself, but that you get to share it and be in this conversation. And also, I've loved all the programs that I do. Like, it's just for me, it kind of sometimes feels like playing a sport, like as if I'm practicing tennis. Like, because I'm in Aaron's like the advanced practitioner one, and I just love it. It lights me up, and I'm really excited for you.
Thank you. I know I I'm excited. Sometimes I think, "What if it's too much?" Because, like, I'm still a part of yours, which I love, and then I psychology has it backwards, then Aaron and then I'm still on the 3 Principles Global Community. I go into the mentor calls and all of that, and I'm like, "What if I burn out?" But I think if it happens, I'll cross that when I get there. Right now, I'm not burned out, and I'm learning every day.
Yeah. Well, and as human beings are really good at dealing with what is. And so what is
Yeah.
right now, it's all manageable. But also, and we ebb and flow. I haven't been to as much 3PGC stuff as I once have, and I look forward to getting back to it. And that's the wonderful thing. There's so many amazing mentors and practitioners and programs, and we get to go to some and flow. And but you've always gotten good guidance of when you need to take a break. And I love that you
Mhm.
said that right before we started recording because that's such a powerful thing too. Something that I'm still learning is like, hey, take a break and just be in your life, because the three principles sometimes can feel like my life because they are life. But
Right. I got that way right before Christmas, and I took a break. I think it was, like, 2 weeks. I
that's
didn't do nothing. I I feel like I listened to, like, a couple podcasts, but I did nothing. I got off of Heartfelt Present too because I was on that a lot too, just listening and, like, observing, and I'm like, "I'm not doing this anymore. I gotta stop." And then it was weird because after, like, a week and a half, I was like, "I'm ready. I wanna get back in there. I wanna listen to everybody, and I'm ready, and I'm refreshed," and
yeah, yeah. Well, I know we were ending, but if you would you tell me what were the signals that you got that it would be good for you to take a break? And then I'd love to know how did you know you were ready to kind of return? What just I think that might be interesting.
all I thought about was the 3 principles. And all I like, my thoughts were just I was going to bed, and I was like, "Well, what if it could be this? And what if the 3 principles mean this? And what if this isn't really gonna work for you? And what if you're just blindsided by everything and it was just a constant, like, load of thought, and then I just, like, woke up the next day and I was like, "I'm gonna let this go for now and be present, more present," and then, I don't know, I just felt like, "Alright, I gotta get back out there, my thoughts are fine, I was just overloaded, maybe, like, insecure state of mind or just low mood, I'm gonna go back to my 3 principles guidance now because I miss it." I just went back in.
I loved it. I mean, that's just such a beautiful thing. Such a beautiful, whether we're talking about the three principles or not. sometimes we can just have a and that's why I so resonated with you when you were sharing about that a couple months ago too. It's part of it, I think, is our gift. Like I can get so obsessed and just all I think about is three principles, all I can listen to. And then I know I want to, I'm gonna and then it can just be too much of a good thing. Like too much noise in our head, whether it's amazing conversation like this, we never feel good when we have too much noise in our head. And I love that you got that signal and you took a break and now you're like, you got ready. And to me, it's just, it's even like too much of a good thing of too much chocolate cake, too much exercise, too much water, and
Much more yep.
our body sends us these signals, we get these love letters. And um, I've just loved having this conversation with you, Fallon. I'm so excited that we got to reconnect.
I know I loved being here. It was
Yay.
so great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Well, I'm so excited. I'll put your links to your Instagram and your TikTok right underneath this.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm so glad I got to be a part of this, and you have a coaching call coming up, which is tomorrow, and I'm excited to be there.
Oh, good. Can't wait to see you. Yeah, Fallon and I are talking about the my Peace from Within community, which Fallon is always a part of. And if you ever anybody wants to join, it's a really great way. I think to be in this healing, amazing conversation.
So much knowledge in there. I love it.
Thank
I will
you.
always tell people too, it's like a little it's the best form of Google without being scared. I
Oh,
love it.
thank you. I do try to have a lot of different topics and a lot of cover a lot of different areas, and that's what's so wonderful is because it's a living thing. Because people are like, "Hey, can you talk about this or can you answer this?" Um I'm really into it. It's really lighting me up. And so
I love it.
part of it. Um yeah, it was so lovely. I'm gonna go check on my
Thank you.
kids. But I hope to see you tomorrow.
Y Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.